Explain like I'm 5. If our body needs oxygen in the air to live, then what does 77 of nitrogen do to our body? As I was told from early education that the air we currently breathe in contains 21 oxygen and 77-ish of nitrogen, and the rest are other particles. So I have a dumb question on what the body uses nitrogen we breathe in for. Nothing. Nitrogen in the air is inert. Our bodies don't do anything with it. We just inhale it and exhale it again. The only time nitrogen in the air is important is when a person moves between environments with very different air pressures, like when scuba diving. Note that nitrogen is present in many molecules that we need to survive. But we don't get it from breathing. We get it from our food. Nothing. It just breathes it out. It's too hard to break apart to use. Other stuff can use atmospheric nitrogen and turn it into useful chemicals. But we can't. So we don't. It's like asking what does a deer do with a dead moose it found? Nothing. It's too hard to eat. So it just doesn't. Other things can do stuff to it and turn it into things the deer can use. But by itself, the deer doesn't do anything to it. Oxygen in high amounts is toxic. Our cells would be damaged from long exposure to high oxygen content. Since nitrogen is not easily absorbed, it keeps the air sacs alveoli in our lungs expanded for better gas exchange. This helps prevent collapse of the air sacs, atelectasis, and the bad things that come from that. There's a common misconception that we inhale only the oxygen and exhale only carbon dioxide, or that we completely deplete the oxygen from what we breathe. The truth is that the composition of the air barely changes during our respiratory process. It goes from 21 O2 and 0.04 CO2 to 16 and 4.4 respectively. That's why you can breathe into a bag and inhale the same air again and not suffocating. The corollary to this is if we don't even process all the oxygen, we sure as hell aren't processing anything else in the air. We ignore all of the other gases and breath them back out. So everyone has said nothing. And that's true. But our bodies are used to it being there. It's like saying you don't need a pillow and blanket to sleep. But it's comfortable and we're used to it, so we want it. Our bodies want air with nitrogen in it because it's easier to breathe. Oxygen is actually a pretty harsh gas, and so it's much easier on our bodies to just get a little at a time. If life on Earth evolved with a much higher oxygen content, we would have developed a much different set of lungs. Our bodies cannot use nitrogen directly. Oxygen is combined with compounds such as carbohydrates to make CO2, water, and other waste products and give up energy. Nitrogen cannot be used for this purpose because nitrogen combining with other substances does not generally generate energy. Our bodies do need nitrogen, but they need it in compounds, mostly proteins and amino acids, instead of using the nitrogen in the air to make these compounds. We get them from eating plants, which make them, and animals, which convert them from plants to make up their own bodies. Nitrogen is absorbed through our lungs and dissolved in our blood and other tissues where it does almost nothing. Divers experience nitrogen narcosis when high pressure underwater increases the amounts of nitrogen in our systems. Like one standard drink per 10,8,239 meters of depth. Presumably there's some very slight effect even at normal atmospheric pressure, and I wonder if we'd be more clear-headed if we replaced the nitrogen with helium or neon. Not much directly. Indirectly look on it as diluting the oxygen to a manageable level. Don't assume that, just because we use oxygen, it's somehow a good gas. It's way too reactive. That makes it nasty, horribly corrosive stuff that you do not want too much of. Nothing. It just gets breathed straight back out. Nitrogen gas comprised two nitrogen atoms bonded together, and it is an extremely stable molecule. Our bodies have no way of breaking it down. It needs something like a lightning strike or the conditions, temperature and pressure found in an internal combustion engine or power plant to force the nitrogen to react with oxygen. Under normal conditions it doesn't really do anything. In anesthesia we use it because it will help keep the small air sacs alveoli open and prevent absorption atelectasis. This is a condition caused when you have 100 oxygen. All of that oxygen can quickly diffuse into the blood, leaving nothing in the alveoli to help them stay open. By reducing the percentage of oxygen with normal nitrogen-containing air, the nitrogen will remain behind and prevent the alveoli from collapsing as easily. It is the equivalent of swallowing a marble. It just passes through without any interaction. Kind of like the air equivalent of fiber. Nothing for our breathing. It just gets sent back out when we breathe out. Plants and fungi use the nitrogen as part of their energy-gaining process, which is why the Earth's atmosphere needs it. Nothing. None of the nitrogen from the air actually enters your body. You breathe in and the air enters your lungs. The space in your lungs is still external to your body. Oxygen from the air goes into your blood. Carbon dioxide from the blood leaves into your lungs. And then you breathe out. The nitrogen doesn't do anything. It get absorbed. And then leaves again. I blame your unethical ways of cheating the system. I completed a challenge in one of my games. It was supposed to be on a specific date. But I was late. So did my thing and bam. Done on the date I was supposed to have done it. Basically nothing. It's just there. We didn't create the atmosphere. We just use bits of it. However, pure oxygen tends to cause things to catch fire all on their own. This includes little things like your lunges, so it is quite convenient we only have 2102 and not 100. Air is made of many gases, but the most abundant of them is nitrogen. Like many have pointed out, nitrogen is an inert gas, meaning it does not react very easily with everything. This makes it very useful for us, because when we breathe air, all that mixture fills our lungs. But the lungs only take the oxygen. This is because oxygen can float freely in the nitrogen. When oxygen touches our lung walls, then it gets absorbed. Nitrogen can also carry out gases we don't need like CO2. It acts as a carrier vessel for oxygen we need and takes out gases we don't need like CO2. Nitrogen gas is highly stable. Our body can't process it. That's why we need nitrogen in our food. To answer your question, it does nothing. Nothing under normal air pressure. Nitrogen did very hardly react with anything. Fun fact. If you dive with the normal pressured air going deeper than 40 meters, sometimes the nitrogen did funny things and you get a kind of drunk. As with any narcotics, it is unknown how that happens. Many people are saying the nitrogen does nothing. But it actually has one very important job: it dilutes the oxygen. If we were to inhale air with 100 oxygen, our lungs would quite literally burn up. A lot of people are saying we breath it out. We do. But it's not useless. For lack of better phrasing, it acts as lubricant for our alveoli in our lungs. Without nitrogen in the air, our lungs are going to dry out and get real messed up real quick. It'll only take a couple days for it to be totally washed out. We probably don't need a ton of nitrogen, but we do need some. Nitrogen is used for diluting the oxygen. Because 100 oxygen are deadly harmful for cells. Consider why H2O2 has the effects of killing the bacteria and germs. Because the decomposition of H2O2 will release pure oxygen as it is deadly harmful. So nitrogen can dilute oxygen, and nitrogen itself is inert, which will not influence our cell. Just like salt is important for us. But all the living creatures cannot survive in pure salt. Life come from sea, which is a kind of water solution with salt.